Welcome to another episode of Management Unfiltered. I am Kirk Teachout.
And I'm Shelley. And
we'll nail that intro time. Eventually.
Yes. Guys, we're bringing a new series to the podcast, which Kirk and I are super excited about. We had a brainstorming session about a week or so ago talking about what content we're bringing to the show and like what kind of episodes and keep it exciting. And this series is Why and When. And Kirk, why don't you tell them about why and when we're talking about today?
Yeah, so today we're going to be talking about something that a lot of people wonder about, that we've seen a lot of suggestions about, which is why and when we should hire an office manager, which naturally we're both office managers. So it's going to be fairly cool in through our experiences, both mine and Zach's individually, and seeing how other office managers have been hired and what you should look in an office manager, how you should compensate them. There's different tiers. It's not one size fits all. So we'll go through all of those things and then also answer any questions that you may have on the back end too.
Yeah, I love that. There's space to answer questions through here. And then you can also go through my Facebook group if you want and tag Kirk and I through there, which is Dental Office Manager Leadership Network. Or hit Kirk up on Instagram. He's got fourth quarter coaching and Kirk Teachout. So hit him up through there. We're always happy to answer questions. So we're just trying to give you guys avenues, but we'd really love for you guys to click, subscribe, give us 5 stars, all that stuff. I just mumbled through all that. Yeah, do all the things. But why and when an office manager? And a lot of people like, well, isn't this Management Unfiltered? Like, why are we going to be directing a conversation to doctors? But not necessarily. Like maybe you're the sole front desk in a startup right now and you're saying, hey, doc, like I want you to promote me to office manager and bring in another front desk. Like why do you need an office manager? When do you need an office manager? Like all the things. And that's kind of a loaded question. A lot of times docs are like, I don't need one. I can do it myself. And guess what, docs? If you don't have one, you are the office manager. So there's still that role and that's still that position.
Or on the flip side, you think your front is an office manager and they are not.
Yeah. Yes, that is a very, very good point there.
Which I hear all the time. It's like, oh yeah, here's my office manager. I'm like, so are they doing it all? Like what, like
you just pointed to the front desk.
Yeah. They're doing a lot, but not the things an office manager should be doing.
Yeah. So why don't we dive into that first, Kirk? Like, okay, we talk about an office manager. A lot of people are like, at least in my opinion, like there's 2 different types of viewpoints of office managers. And you can tell me what your viewpoints are. Because we talk a little bit about what we're going to do on the episodes, guys. But Kirk and I don't lay out exactly what we're going to say in points because that's where we want to keep it organic and get 2-sided opinions and be able to have that conversation. My opinion is the 2 different types of office managers. You have one that is solely dedicated office manager or practice manager, one that's running the entire business, but they're also running all the behind the scenes, getting the practice to functionally run efficiently, effectively. They're looking at P&Ls, they're looking at budgets, they're assigning all these things to other people. And then you have another office manager, which is more, and I don't want anybody to take offense to this, but once again, this show is called Management Unfiltered. So we're not gonna
don't hold punches, just get it. Just right hook. Come on.
It's glorified front desk.
Yeah.
Is really what it is. And what Kirk said, like the doc calls you an office manager, but you're not and it's not because of your ability. It's because you have not been elevated or trained into that position or set the expectations of what needs to actually happen. And I feel like a lot of office managers are kind of stuck in that spot and don't know where to go. So that's where this episode kind of pushes us into the aspect of why and when. So office managers that are on that other ladder side where you're like, hey, I'm that person, where you can go back and say, hey, doc, listen to this episode of this podcast. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about how we can update our structure of the practice and how we can take ownership of this and grow it into an awesome position, one for you and possibly, could be a salary increase if you negotiate correctly. But then also it's a big salary increase for your doc because you can get way more efficient with your systems. So, what are your thoughts on that, Kirk?
No, I completely agree. So the majority of my clients, and when I say my clients, right? So I coach doctors and practice owners on, and some office managers on how to be more efficient in their practice by building systems. And honestly, the majority of the clients that I have are solo doc practices that don't have an office manager, that have a glorified front desk. And I build those systems honestly in a way to scale until they need an office manager, right? So yes, technically they're managing, but it's team led and they're getting better at delegating, right? So in a sense, everyone's an office manager. um, but in that kind of practice where I build it that way, because the goal is to get as much admin stuff off the doctor as possible, right? So they're not stuck in the minutia of the stuff, right? And so they can focus on the height of their license. So anytime I come into a practice, the majority of the pillar that I focus on with team optimization is everyone really focuses on the height of their license. So, for instance, a doctor should not be taking a PA or scanning or doing things they should not be doing. Okay, it doesn't mean they can't. It doesn't mean they won't, but it means they don't need to.
It's not in their day to day. That's not part of their job description.
Exactly, because somebody else can be taking a PA or doing a scan while they're doing a filling that only they can do if they don't have FDAs, right? Or the same with hygiene. Like hygienists should not be filling out a spreadsheet. Okay, they should be doing hygiene. There are people for these specific roles, and you need to allow them to do it. And if you need more people in those positions, that's fine. But at the end of the day, if we can get everybody to that level, then it just comes to, as we're scaling, there's a point and a threshold where we really need somebody to now manage the team. So that way the doc can really focus on just dentistry, right? And have a meeting with the office manager who then relays that to the team.
When you first start a practice, doc, do you need an office manager right away? Probably not. Is it okay if you have somebody that's capable? Absolutely. Because you can create those systems right from ground one or ground zero, whatever you want to call it. But you don't necessarily have to have one right away. But there is, like Kirk said, a threshold, because when you get to the point where you, the doc, everybody's calling you, hey, I'm running late or I'm not in today, and you're having to figure out the schedule, that is the first, nail in your coffin of your practice not doing well. And a lot of these things, if you have somebody that is managing the team, then you can sit in the chair and be a dentist, and you can tell your assistants what you need and don't need. And those are the people you're directly in charge of at the moment. Yes, the office manager is going to be over all the team, but you're working with your assistant day in and day out. So if you have two assistants, those are only two people you really need to worry about the whole day, because the OM is going to take care of everything else. Because if you're not in the chair cutting teeth, you're not making money. If you're on the phone talking to the lab, you're not making money. These are things, there's so many things that we could probably nitpick through here, Kirk, of why you need an office manager. And it's inspections, right? OSHA inspections, health department inspections, making sure you have the right meds in your office, compliance, insurance policies that they're coming in, fire alarm inspections with the city licensure stuff. You have an OM to handle all that stuff for you. Bonus checks, have them prepare. Even if they're not a signer on the count, they can get all the checks printed out for you or written out for you. All you got to do is audit and sign. So something that would take hours to do, or you can have your bookkeeper take care of that. But you have an OM that's going to be looking at things. So when we talk, Kirk, your practice is 3 days a week, right? You have two providers as far as dentists, and then you have a couple hygienists, correct?
Right.
All right. So on my end, we have a multi-specialty practice. So we have a pediatric specialty on one side with two pediatric dentists. And then we have a general practice with 3 general dentists that do everything from, your basic bread and butter dentistry to implants and all on 4 cases from time to time, and surgical procedures. And we have about 37 employees there. And you have how many at yours, Kirk?
7.
7. So we have, and the reason I'm laying this out isn't to say my practice is superior to Kirk's. No, we have 2 different styles of practices that are both, 1, extremely profitable, 2, run very, very well. And this isn't just to be cocky and pat ourselves on the backs, but it's things that we put into place and systems and structure by having an office manager to be able to run these things. So you have 2 practices that are worlds apart. We work 5 days a week. They work 3 days a week. I have 10 hygienists. He has a couple hygienists, but 2 hygienists. There we go. I said couple. So it was a vague statement, but yes, 2.
And now we don't even have an associate. So we had an associate up until a couple weeks ago. Yeah. So it's just my wife now.
Yeah. So the whole purpose in laying this out, guys, isn't to toot my horn or to toot Kirk's. It is to say, we have two wildly different practices. But if you look at our bottom lines and our profitabilities, they're probably very, very alike because of how we have the structure in our practice. And that has become from Kirk running as an OM and also from me running as an OM. And that's the only way that you're able to scale practices, because day one, our practice wasn't running that way. And day one, your practice wasn't running that way, because things have to be built. Like you said, with COVID, gave you that time to build your practice and build the systems that you wanted to be effective.
No, and intentionality, right? And constant refinement, not being okay with that moment in time. Continually just refine and refine and refine and get more efficient. So it takes time. It's not just an overnight thing.
No. And like, that's the thing. When I was brought into this practice 5 years ago, there was no office manager in the history of the practice, which was kind of mind blowing to me because this position was created. And my owner doc was like, I don't know what it's going to look like. I honestly don't know what your responsibilities are going to be, but we're going to figure it out. And I was like, all right. So I got this big Google Doc of like everything just like kind of just linearly like written out, like, run payroll, do employee reviews, make sure the teams are trained, like just very vague, like high level points of like, these are the things I want taken care of. I just don't know what it looks like, but this is what you'll be responsible for. And my favorite part is the bottom line, which I say all the time: other duties as assigned.
Not limited to anything else.
And that's just a mindset. If you're coming into office management, just expect that. There's just going to be random crap that you're going to have to take care of all the time. Just accept the fact of it, but be proud of yourself to be in this management position, because you can make a huge impact. But one of the things is, Doc, when you're first considering an office manager, the why factor comes in of why are you considering an office manager? Well, one, you're probably getting burnt out. Two, you don't have enough time to take care of the things. And three, you're losing a lot of money. Because when my doc came out, he said, we've signed things that I didn't even realize we signed for, and it just cost me a ton of money. And that was one of my biggest things that I don't want to do is, you sign for a phone lease. Nobody leases phones anymore. Apparently our office did. And it cost us like $6,000. And I'm like, bro, who made this decision? He's like, honestly, I don't know. I just signed my name when I was told to. And I was like, that's a terrible, terrible idea. But then you can correct that. Our office supplies for medical dental supplies was 14% on the P&L. Do you know what we reduced that to? 3.9%. That is 10.1% on our P&L that we're saving every single month. Do you know how much money that is, guys? So much money. Docs, when you have somebody that can look at these things, implement a system, and move forward with it and make sure it works, that's where you're going to be so much better off. So that's one of the big whys is you don't have time to handle the things effectively. Your team's starting to fall apart. Your culture is starting to dip. But why not fix it before you get to that point? So Kirk, why don't you give a couple like more indications of like when is the right time to bring in an OM? Like monetarily.
Yeah, monetarily.
Yeah, let's go there. That's an easy benchmark.
Yeah, I mean, to me, there are your really crazy producers that are doing 2 million or so. If we just look at the average doc out there, I would say you probably need an OM. If you don't have a coach, which you should.
That's really, really good looking.
Yeah. If you don't have a coach, then I would say that like $1.5 million mark is like in collections. If you can't but there's like some flexibility in that. It's like, right, if you can't get past a certain point, then I would say that may be something that you need to do too. So like if you can't get past 1 million, 1.2, without like really doing something crazy, then that's where you could bring in an OM to take off that time that you're spending using other, your abilities for other things that you shouldn't, then cutting teeth. Then that's where like you have the compensation, hopefully, if your overhead's not out of control, to be able to hire an OM to really scale that next 800,000 or so, because that first million, there's so many fixed costs, right? And that's why the average is, 25 to 30% profit margin. But past that first million, there's really not that much cost. So everything like the reason why you hear like the Scott Lunas and different people, like my first coach in dental, he was profiting almost 2 million a year by himself. By himself. Right? You can bring home 7 figures simply if you can get to that $2 million mark with a good profit margin. So I think if you can get to that 1.5, that's honestly like where it's really nice. We'll have another episode on front desks, and I'll go over that maybe in that point. But that 1.5 million, that's where you can really have somebody to solely focus on managing the team and directing what needs to happen, getting your compliance in order, making sure your meetings are run smoothly so you can focus on the dentistry and closing treatment.
Yeah. And guys, I'm just going to put a caveat on this. Kirk is talking about bread and butter dentistry. We're not talking about all on 4 offices that, you're doing 6 cases a week and you're producing $2 million. I mean, yeah, if you want an office manager for that, that's great to run, whole financial side, but we're talking about a bread and butter dentistry office.
Yeah. Crown and bridge.
Yeah. Like there's ways to make that, but what we're talking about is when you bring in an OM and they're able to handle. So there's 2 things that need to happen. One, doc, you need to just hear me out real quick, is just shut up, set your expectations and let your OM do what they need to do as long as they're good. And 2, get them the education they need, empower them, set a budget for it, and know that this is to further your practice and to further your ability to grow your practice. Invest in your OM is key to getting them to grow. But you do have to find the right person. So you've got to be able to look at these people on your team, whether you're bringing them in as a new hire or it's somebody currently on your team that's an outlier that just overperforms everybody. That's the person you need to be talking to and say, hey, would you like to see the next step of dentistry? Like, do you want to grow? Like, where do you want to go with this? If they have a passion, they want to do more, dude, give them the freaking reins and let them run. Set the guidelines, set the barriers and the borders of what you want them to do and let them do it. Because nobody's going to do really well if you're breathing down their neck every single day and you're trying to micromanage them. It doesn't work. I can tell you right now. So you got to figure out how to change that in yourself. And
have a big enough vision to really attract the right one, right? So, I do this with my clients too. It's like the vision lab where we look at their vision, we figure out what they want to bring home personally. And like, okay, if you want to bring home, for easy numbers, right, $1 million, which is very out of reach for a lot of people, but $1 million. Okay. So if we do that, right, then we have to create a practice and a vision to hit that goal, right? So for instance, that would be $2 million with a 50% overhead, right? Or if you have $1 million practice and you want to bring $400,000 home, okay, cool. We just need to get your profit margin at 40% or more. So that way you can do that. So, when you're looking at an OM, ask them, what are your goals personally, right? What are your goals personally? Because if my vision's not big enough for you, they're not going to stay, right? They're not. Because if they can't get to their personal goals at your office, they're not going to work hard. They're going to do the job until something opens up to where they can hit their personal goals. So you need to be able to create something and find someone where their personal vision, if their personal vision is to make $150,000 a year with their base salary and their bonuses or whatever, which we'll talk about here in a second, then you bring home $500,000 or whatever, great. That's the person you need. And you invest in them, like Zach said. You send them to John Maxwell courses, right, for leadership training. You send them to business schools and dental business specifically, like with Scott Luna and different people, right, to learn these things day in and day out and invest in them because they're the ones that are going to help you scale the business. So you don't have to do it.
You mentioned, what they're going to make. And this is a big discussion between, all kinds of groups. It's been in my group. It's been in, every other Facebook group. Like, hey, how much should an OM make? And, there's, generally speaking, like you have a range, right? Depending on the size of the practice. Like if you're a $1 million office in single doc you can't expect to make 150 grand as an OM for that office. You just can't. It's not logical. You also have to look at the region of what you're looking of where you're at in the United States of, median income. I'm a big and strong believer, and Luna preaches on this too, is you pay your team what they deserve, not what the market value says. So there are outliers at that. But with that said, it's safe to say with a busy office, let's say over $2 million, I would say a base salary between 60 and 85,000 is a fair generality. But where your OM is going to start crushing it and making their money is incentivization. And when you incentivize an office manager, one of the best ways that I see it done is to do it off of the profitability of the practice. So you say, I want to see 29%. Okay, perfect. You hit 29%. This is what you get every quarter. It's an average, it's cumulative for the year. So, you might be a little bit behind. You're going to get your bonuses, but you better be darn sure you get hit it by the end of the year, right? But, that's one good way. So you can do it quarterly, you can do it monthly. I wouldn't advise yearly. It's too much time. There's no reward. It takes, there's a lot you're working for. And then if you don't hit it, it's like, man, I just wasted my entire year. But yeah, you can expect to pay an OM in between 65 and 80 a year. And you're like, well, what if I just pay them more and don't incentivize? I'm like, well, that's one way to do it. But if you do that, where's the effort to push them to want to do more, to get you to where you need to be? Because if they're making more money in the way that I just told you how to do it, you're making more money. And I guarantee you, your dividend's going to be 10x of what theirs is. It's the way it works. It's just, we're going to work so much harder for you, Doc, to hit our bonus that you're going to see so much more on the bottom line if you have effective systems. Like just dropping 10%, and I say just 10%, that's a massive number in our practice, in our supplies. Like that's huge. And that's training somebody in our team. I have somebody that does all our ordering. She works every single stinking deal she possibly can in our practice, but we don't ever go without. We use the best of the products. We don't skimp out on anything. We're using Scotch Bond Universal. Like we're not using Darby Dental's, whatever Prime Bond or whatever you want to.
We're using Dent Splice Arona stuff, but we keep it at 4% too.
You can use great products. You don't have to sacrifice quality. You just have to be smart about it. And so the other thing is Doc, the why is they can sit and they can look at your practice numbers if you teach them well and getting that education to learn how to read a P&L, how to talk to your bookkeeper, how to talk to your tax accountant, and talk to all these people for you and say, hey, this is what we're needing to do. This is how we're needing to grow. And then you can look at the P&L and they can sit. I just gave a copy of my State of the Month report template for everybody in my group of like how to report back to your owner of what's going on in the practice so you can strategize next month, and you meet with them minimum once a week. I say every day, but if you can, minimum once a week. But if you can do it every day, even if it's 20 minutes, take 20 minutes of your time just to meet with your owner. How's everything going? Just so you always have that constant line of contact with them, you're going to see massive increases in your team, in your income, and just the overall happiness of everybody.
Yeah, it's way better when you can, that's why I like even outside of the office manager, and we can talk about bonus systems on this series and all sorts of stuff. But we do a daily bonus for that very reason, right? Because we're okay. Well, I'm not okay with delayed gratification, but I can do it better, right, than the people I'm hiring and I'm leading. So we do a daily bonus because it's at the front of their minds, right? And it promotes consistency and it's a win-win-win, right? So we've got the team wins because they are incentivized to work harder than their base salary. The doctor wins because now the team is being proactive in things versus the doctor having to do it or the OM. And then the patient is the ultimate winner because now we're being proactive in their care versus reactive when they come in, right? Which is so much better than, okay, hey, let's do a monthly bonus or a quarterly bonus that's based off this crazy formula that nobody understands how to create it. And then if you're getting so close, but you're not going to hit it, the team sandbags you. You blow it out of the water, but there's no more incentivization. They sandbag you anyway too. So like having something that's structured with your OM that allows them to do it based off performance and even get the team involved in it is just so crucial.
Yeah, incentivization is like, that's got to be a whole other episode of bonus structures and like how we get our team on board with that. a point I wanted to make is because we just talked about like educating your office manager, like getting them the education that they need. Docs, I want you to hear this very, very clearly. Don't be cheap. Like seriously, pay for good education, pay for their flights, pay for their food, pay for their room and board. Don't be stupid about this, please. Because the guarantee the way you're not going to get your office manager to learn is by being cheap. That is going to turn around and pay so much back to you if you just empower your office managers to be their best and give them everything that they need. Don't be stupid. Don't be cheap.
And everybody, Zach is not saying this out of out of like just an OM versus a practice owner, right? This is literally the things that we've seen that work and don't work, right? The ones that are cheap, they don't produce good quality OMs, period. And so, but the ones that have an abundant mindset, like Dr. Calderon, or like my wife, I'm a little biased, they allow us to thrive and grow. And it's kind of like with George Patton, right? It's like you tell them what to do and let them surprise you with the result. You just got to find a good one. It's got to find a good one and pay them well.
You got to find ways that makes it worth it for them. I can tell you so many times I've been to conferences and talked to OMs and they're like, yeah, I paid my own way. My doctor doesn't care enough, but they're invested enough in themselves that they pay their own way to go to these courses. I'm like, where's the doctors around here looking for OM? I just found you one right here that they're paying their way to educate themselves. I'm like, dude, who's looking for an OM? Like, I found one right here, this person.
Self-starters are huge. I mean, I couldn't pay enough for that.
Like, you could honestly, Doc, if you're looking for a good OM, like go to like a regional conference that's in your area and just say like, hey, did your doctor
That'd be terrible.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
You would find one so fast.
Well, this has been another great episode of Management Unfiltered. I know we're going to have a lot of fun with this series. Please drop a 5-star review with other things you want to know about, hey, why and when. And is there anything else that you would like to make a comment on, Zach?
No, just we're going to have, Kirk and I in our planning session have a bunch of episodes already pre-planned of like what we're going to talk about. But there are so many aspects of dentistry that we may not even realize are such a pain point. So like hit us up with all of those. And like Kirk said, 5 stars. Let's make this the biggest, the best management podcast ever. Like, let's get as many subscribers, guys. Let's get the news out there that we're talking about all the topics to get you guys successful. And also to docs, like, listen to this, apply this, hear the struggles of your team, because you're like one of the most important people listening to this, because if you want your practice to be successful, listen to the people that actually deal with it every single day and deal with the crap that kind of rolls downhill with you. But yeah, like it, subscribe, give us those 5 stars, give us suggestions. We talk too much, tell us to shut up. We may listen to you, we might not, but we're going to be here. We're going to be having fun and we're going to learn together. All right, guys, we will see you on the next episode. Talk to you soon.